Hi class, just wanted to make a few comments via this screencast about the group project that we did on Friday. Some great stuff in here, but I actually we were in a hurry at the event, and as you know, and really didn't have time to finish it. And so I didn't want you to think that, obviously this one was the absolute model. I think this was definitely, had some promising starts, but there are a couple things that I think is good to just kind of point out so that you can avoid some mistakes or some things in your own homework that you're going to turn in next Friday. So, and this, by the way, I'm going to try this approach for the next couple homeworks to give you feedback individually. So I'll be making a kind of a video like this to comment on your work instead of giving you the text feedback for the next couple assignments. So meanwhile, here's the beginning of the production. I like the idea of having a title frame, but to be honest, I would, and this looks slick, like there's no doubt it's one of the presets on iMovie, but I would have skipped this. I would just cut this now that I see it, because there's two things that one thing is it is kind of a default and a bit cheesy. And if you were on your own newspaper, you wouldn't do this. You would have a team of animators, or a visuals expert. But meanwhile, I know it can look slick, but I actually would argue that you're better off just skipping this for another reason, which is that in a way this starts twice. It kind of has a repetitive beginning, whereas you have this, which is a fine headline that rolls out, but then
this is Will Friedman.
You have the introduction. It feels like it just kind of starts again. And I tried rolling Will Friedman, introduction underneath this, but I kind of felt like it was just too much information all at once as you're reading those words that are flying by and you're trying to listen. So I would have just started this production here. I would have just started right here with "This is Will Friedman" as the shot of the building comes, which is nice. The other thing I would definitely have done in your script here is I would have included the location, and that would have been very quickly done. You could, I don't want to gum up, you wouldn't want to gum up the works, but you could just say after that, setup of what issue we're talking about, you could have just quickly said, we talked with students, journalism students at University of Maryland's, school of journalism, and of course the trick is avoiding journalism twice, but you might say, we were talking about the future of the profession with students at the journalism school at University of Maryland. Something very quick, and that I would recommend. And then you could have another one of the nice establishing shots that you took, to kind of pad out that space. The other option would simply be to use a title and put, University of Maryland underneath here, just to kind of link where this is, because a lot of people watching may not know, especially when your video goes viral and they're just catching this kind of out of context, they may not know that Knight Hall is the J School of Maryland.
Some challenges are definitely...
So that image, and again, this is as much my fault as anyone, that image was up obviously too short. You want to be wary of having a slide up so short that we can't even tell what's happening.
Definitely having to have...
and I expect, and there just wasn't time, I do expect that if you have a person that shows up in your audio slideshow, that you will identify them, either in your narration or here. It would have been nice just to have a rule of thirds kind of pop up, not rule of thirds, a sort of a lower thirds, it's called, ID pop up, where you could put the name of the student here. So you...
Better skill set. You really can't just focus on that.
Now, transitions, I know there are a lot of tempting transitions to use in iMovie, or if you use any of the other video editing programs we'll be talking about, but I would have used just a straight transition. My advice to you all, especially for the homework you're turning in next week, is to definitely stick with kind of the basic cross dissolve or fade in fade out transition, instead of something like this. I know that it can look cool, but I think there's two things. One is if you just kind of dabble around with a lot of different transitions, it feels kind of random or unexpected, and doesn't feel kind of intentional. And the other thing is it kind of distracts or calls attention away from what you really want people to be focusing on. You just want those transitions to happen, and so no one even thinks about them. A good transition is one that no one even notices.
Someone thing anymore. You can't just be a videographer. You can't just be a writer anymore. You have to be everything.
And I think the photographs and the sound I want to commend. I thought you picked some great clips. I thought the interviews were interesting, and I commend those of you who were involved with kind of whittling down the material, because you had a lot of material, even though we did a recording very quickly. But I thought it was a great decision to just have kind of the best quotes from the sources instead of trying to jam in 2 or 3 quotes from each person, and this would have been a lot longer, and you wouldn't have had the images to support it. So I think it was really smart to just really pick the best quote in each of the questions that you used, so that you didn't have this go on so long that we were bored. I thought this was a great length.
Citizen journalism has become more and more common. People who are not part of it.
So I know that if you use one of these software packages like iMovie or Movie Maker on Windows, it's possible to do these Ken Burns effects where you're moving across the slides. But this one moves a little too fast.
Become more and more common. People who are not part of
so if you should, and this image was sort of a mistake to throw in. It's too up too short. But I do think that if you're using these effects, you don't always have to have everything be in motion constantly. I would say that use the Ken Burns effect sparingly. Don't have it be on all of the shots in what you turn in. Try to just do it where you think maybe a slide is up in a length that you worry that there's a little too long, so you want to have a little bit of action happening. But don't just do it just because you can. Think about why would you even put a move on it. And the very best reason to do it is if you really want to focus in on a detail, but don't just put in a zoom in on a picture just to do it, just to have some motion. Try to think about the default being just have a still up there and just let people just admire the great photograph you took. And then occasionally you might want to use that kind of motion effect, and when you do, you should have a reason you did it.
Professional news organizations are covering events.
If citizen journalism just runs rampant, then at some point
So this is, again, avoid those transitions that are sort of a little cheesy.
My own future within the field, but at the same time, I'm sort of doing my own citizen journalism by having.
So here there's too many pictures. I know that I said don't leave any image up in your slideshows longer than 20 seconds as a rule. Also, I would say that it's fine to have a picture be up for 10 seconds, 15 seconds. That's good, especially when you're taking good photographs. You want to give people time to let that sink in. And they're also listening to the audio. So they're not going to get as bored as fast as you will as you're producing this. So definitely don't put in too many slides. I think right here these could have been paced a little differently.
Too concerned about it, because otherwise, how am I getting my experience right now?
And I think this is something that was just because we ran out of time. But don't have your images repeat. Don't use the same image twice, unless there's some absolute reason that's a crucial image you want to kind of call attention to. But for your projects you're turning in, never reuse a picture. If you don't have enough pictures, then you need to either go get more pictures or maybe even think about tightening your script to avoid it that way.
But no, I'm not too concerned about it. I think that everybody has their own ideas that anybody should be able to see, but I don't think it's going to take away from the people who actually make it their profession.
Some journalists are conflicted on the benefits of this new trend.
I still think there will be jobs because...
So, obviously there were some kind of mistakes there with the images being up too short, but again, that was sort of but obviously you're not going to do that for yours, you want it to look better than that.
Traditional jobs are disappearing, like newsrooms are shrinking.
So again, that was one where it was up too short. It should have been up a little longer.
Things popping up. I mean, there are people that get paid to be bloggers.
People's needs are changing, and the industry is trying desperately to catch up.
The field of journalism itself is sort of
Now, one thing that I wanted to point out, it is okay, and it's sometimes a nice effect to go ahead and start the audio of your next subject before their face comes in. But and this I think worked well here,
sort of trend
where we first start to hear Dean, and people haven't seen him in this production yet, so they don't know him. But
itself is sort of,
and it's just for a second or two, and then you see him, and that's good. It's up to you, how whether you use that or not. It's an effect though that I think can be nice to just kind of move between people that way. So it's an option.
Trending towards this immediate sense of I need to know what's going on now. So
And here I would have, you had 3 nice shots of the subject here, but I think because the quote is shorter, I would have just used 2 of these. So just because you take a lot of good pictures, don't feel like you have to show them all off. Do what's best for the pacing of the interview. And every time you switch photographs, it's kind of readjusting people and having them kind of maybe not catch the audio. So you want to, be careful of
the
over
previously
sliding.
held values of writing.
I like this picture. I think it was
structure
smart
of
that you guys did
articles
these kind of
will
meta
no
shots. I
longer
like that.
be valued in the same sense because, like I said, people want to know what's going on. And that's really all they care.
And I would have probably ended on this image because I think that was a nice, just done a fade out right there instead of going back to the building. And again, that was just kind of a leftover shot, I think, at this point. And also, you just never want to have a Ken Burns effect that moves this fast. It's just kind of feels a little sloppy, and it's not
For the Friday Night Slice.
not up to the rest of the production. So I just wanted to point out those points, and some of them might have been obvious to you guys. I know this was sort of, like I said, a little bit my doing, but I wanted to just make sure that you realize that I didn't mean for this to be the model exactly as you did it, but I think, I hope that doing this project in class did help and help you think about what you'll be doing for your own that you're turning in next week. So I look forward to seeing you guys and seeing what you come up with. Thanks.